The story began on an ordinary Friday night in Denver, Colorado, when Hannah Pierce was too tired to notice the first crack in her life widening. At 36, she was a single mother who knew exactly where every dollar went before it ever touched her account. Mortgage, utilities, Mason's medical co-pays, the small emergency fund she guarded like a secret. So when a lazy voice drifted from her living room and said, "Hey, I used your card for candy," she didn't react. She was rinsing dishes after a long shift in risk and compliance at a health insurance company, her mind already half asleep. Candy meant a few dollars at most. She told herself she would check the charge later. Later came at midnight, when the house was finally quiet. She opened her banking app, expecting to see a small purchase. Instead, she saw concert tickets, limited edition sneakers, gaming equipment, designer clothing, and a deposit for a summer music festival she had never heard of. In less than a week, $8,400 had vanished from her account. The money she had set aside for Mason's inhaler refills and the repair her rattling car desperately needed was gone. Her heart did not race. It went still. Before I continue, I need to ask you a quick favor. We're working toward our first 1,000 subscribers, and your support truly makes a difference. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It's completely free, like this video, and tell me where you're watching from. That single click helps this channel grow and allows me to keep bringing you stories like this. Hannah stared at the transaction list until the numbers felt unreal. Each charge carried a timestamp, each receipt confirmation linked to accounts logged in from her own Wi-Fi. She checked again, hoping for a fraud alert, some outside explanation. There was none. The purchases were made from devices inside her home. She called her mother, her voice calm but strained, and read the total out loud. There was a short pause on the other end of the line before her mother let out a soft laugh. "Kids will be kids," she said gently, as if $8,400 were a spilled drink instead of months of security. The words landed heavier than the charges themselves. Hannah ended the call and sat in the dim light of her bedroom. Mason was asleep in the bed beside hers, because 4 months earlier she had given up his room. She looked at her son's steady breathing and felt something sharpen inside her. No one else was going to fix this. No one else was going to protect him. She didn't cry. She opened her laptop instead. By 2:10 in the morning, every shared access point to her money was sealed. Hannah contacted her bank and flagged the unauthorized charges. She froze her cards. She removed her payment information from delivery apps, shopping sites, rideshare profiles, and subscription services. She logged out of shared devices and changed every password. She contacted ticket platforms and asked which purchases were still within cancellation windows. The work was methodical, almost clinical, and it steadied her breathing. She was not slamming doors or raising her voice. She was stopping the damage. When she finally closed her laptop, the house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. She lay awake for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, knowing the morning would not be quiet. At 7:30 a.m., it wasn't. Caleb Dawson stormed into the kitchen holding his phone like evidence. "Did you lock the accounts?" he demanded. "My card got declined at the gas station." Hannah poured herself coffee before answering. "Yes," she said. "I did." Caleb stared at her as if she had committed a crime. Samantha appeared behind him, phone pressed to her ear. "Instacart kicked me out," she said sharply. "It says payment method invalid. Did the bank freeze everything?" Then Evan walked in, hoodie half-zipped, irritation written across his face. "My Amazon orders disappeared," he snapped. "And the festival deposit is pending review. What's going on?" They all looked at Hannah. She set her mug down carefully. "Over $8,400 was spent from my account without my permission," she said. She turned her phone toward them and scrolled through the transactions. Concert tickets, gaming gear, sneakers, clothes, a trip deposit, all ordered from this house. Evan's jaw tightened. "You can't prove that was me," he said quickly. "Sites get hacked." Hannah kept her voice steady. "The confirmation emails went to accounts logged in from my iPad. The delivery address is this house. The timestamps match when you were here. And one of those nights, you told me you used my card for candy." The kitchen went quiet. Caleb ran a hand over his face. "He's 19, he said defensively. "He doesn't think about bills the way you do." Hannah met his eyes. 19 is an adult, she replied. "And that money was for Mason's healthcare and the car that gets me to work." Samantha crossed her arms. "You offered to help us when we moved in. We're family." The word family hung in the air like a shield. 4 months earlier, Caleb had called her from a parking lot in another state after losing his logistics job. He had asked for a few weeks to regroup. Hannah had said yes without hesitation. She moved Mason out of his bedroom, turned her office into storage, and told herself it was temporary. The grocery bill doubled. The power bill climbed. Streaming subscriptions multiplied. She absorbed it quietly, believing effort would follow gratitude. Now she saw the truth clearly. They had mistaken generosity for permission. "I helped you with a place to stay," she said calmly. "I did not give anyone access to my emergency fund." Caleb's expression hardened. "You could have talked to us before freezing everything," he said. "We woke up locked out of accounts like criminals." Hannah didn't flinch. "I did talk to you last night," she reminded him. "You told me to figure it out in the morning." Evan scoffed and dropped into a chair. "It's not like you're broke," he muttered. "You've got a good job. You'll make it back." The casual dismissal landed heavier than the theft itself. Hannah looked at him steadily. "That money was already spoken for," she said. "Mortgage. Utilities. Prescriptions. Car repair. I don't have extra just because I plan carefully." Samantha let out a slow breath. "We're under pressure too," she said. "Jobs aren't easy to find." Hannah nodded once. "I understand pressure. That's why I work. That's why I budget. What I don't understand is using someone else's card without permission." She lifted her mug again, her hands steady. "Nothing gets turned back on. Not today." The finality in her voice shifted the room. This wasn't an argument. It was a decision. That evening, after Mason finished his homework and retreated to the small corner of Hannah's bedroom that now served as his space, she asked everyone to meet at the kitchen table. No television. No phones. Just conversation. Caleb sat with his arms folded. Samantha leaned back, guarded. Evan slouched low in his chair, jaw tight. Hannah placed a printed bank statement in the center of the table. "This is the past month," she said. "Mortgage. Utilities. Groceries. Gas. Medical expenses. And the extra costs that came with 3 more adults in this house." She let them read the numbers. "When you called me from that parking lot," she said to Caleb, "I didn't hesitate. I moved Mason out of his bedroom. I rearranged my work schedule. I said yes because you're my brother." She paused. "But helping doesn't mean unlimited access." Evan rolled his eyes. "You're acting like I robbed a bank." Hannah held his gaze. "You used someone else's card without permission. That's theft." The word hung in the air, uncomfortable and accurate. Evan straightened in his chair. "I was stressed," he said. "It's hard watching everyone online live better than you. The tickets, the clothes, it makes you feel normal." Samantha nodded quickly. "He's young. He's figuring things out." Hannah listened without interrupting. Then she spoke quietly. "Money isn't about status for me. It's stability. It's Mason's inhaler. It's keeping the car running so I can get to work. It's making sure we never end up calling someone from a parking lot asking for a couch." Caleb looked away. "So what are you saying?" he asked finally. Hannah folded her hands. "From now on, no one uses my cards, my accounts, or my login information. If you want subscriptions, you pay for them. If you want takeout, you cover it. And anyone over 18 needs to be working or actively applying for jobs. Not browsing. Applying." Evan scoffed, but she continued. "You have 10 days to show me progress. If nothing changes, we start planning for you to move out." Silence followed. The next morning, before work, Hannah printed job listings within a 20-mile radius. Retail shifts, warehouse openings, delivery positions, coffee shops, grocery stores, roles that paid modestly but consistently. She highlighted listings that matched Caleb's experience and circled entry-level options for Evan. She left the stack on the table with a note, "Hiring now. I can help with applications tonight." When she returned home that evening, the papers were untouched. One page had a coffee ring on the corner. During dinner, she asked if anyone had applied. Caleb shrugged. "Most of those don't pay enough." Samantha added, "Gas would cost half the paycheck." Evan picked up a listing and snorted. "Fast food? Retail? That's not my vibe." Hannah looked at him steadily. "Your current vibe is unemployment," she said calmly. He pushed his chair back and walked away. Caleb didn't stop him. That silence spoke louder than any excuse. On the third day, Hannah took a personal day from work. After Mason left for school, she walked through the house with a laundry basket and collected every recent purchase she had not authorized. The unopened gaming headset box under the couch. Limited edition sneakers still in their packaging. Designer hoodies with tags attached. She matched each item to its receipt confirmation and placed them carefully in the basket. Then she drove to the stores. At the electronics retailer, the associate scanned the headset and nodded. "You're within the return window," she said. "Refund goes back to the original card." Hannah watched the confirmation screen light up. At the sneaker store, the clerk hesitated. "These are hard to get," he said. "You sure?" She met his eyes. "I didn't buy them." One by one, refunds processed. By mid-afternoon, she had recovered just over $5,000. It wasn't everything, but it was movement. When she pulled back into her driveway, Evan was pacing on the porch, his face flushed. "Where were you?" he demanded. Evan stepped off the porch as Hannah closed her car door. "What did you do?" he demanded, his voice tight. She held the empty laundry basket at her side. "I returned what I could," she said evenly. "Anything still within the store's policy went back. The refunds were processed to my card." His face drained of color. "You can't just do that. That was my stuff." Hannah didn't raise her voice. "It was purchased with my money without my permission. It was never yours." He pulled out his phone, anger rising fast. "I'll call the police. You stole thousands of dollars from me." She met his stare without blinking. "Go ahead. When they arrive, I'll show them my bank statements, the receipts, and the device history tied to this address. They can explain what using someone else's card is called." His confidence faltered. The bravado slipped, replaced by something closer to panic. "You wouldn't actually get me in trouble," he said more quietly. "I didn't choose this," she replied. "You did." Caleb appeared in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices. "What's happening?" he asked, looking between them. Evan pointed toward the car. "She returned everything," he said. "All of it." Caleb looked at Hannah, searching her face for hesitation. He found none. "You could have talked to us first," he said carefully. "I did," she answered. "I gave you 10 days. It's day 3. Nothing changed." She stepped past them and went inside. That evening, her phone buzzed with additional confirmations from her bank. Between the store refunds and disputed charges that were reversed, she had recovered more than $7,600. Not the full $8,400, but enough to stabilize her account. She paid the overdue utility balance immediately and scheduled the long-postponed car repair. For the first time in weeks, her breathing felt steady. Caleb and Samantha kept their distance that night. Evan stayed in his room. The tension in the house shifted. It was no longer loud. It was cautious. The following days moved slowly. Caleb accepted an interview at a local coffee shop after Hannah connected him with a manager she knew. He returned home with a paper schedule, clearly unimpressed but employed. Samantha signed up for a grocery delivery app and completed a few orders, though she complained about parking and low tips. Evan submitted an online application for a warehouse position but grew irritated when he didn't receive an immediate response. For a moment, it appeared the ultimatum had sparked effort. The television stayed off some evenings because people were tired from actual work. Groceries lasted longer. The air felt less stagnant. Hannah watched quietly, not praising or criticizing. She wasn't looking for enthusiasm. She was looking for consistency. Mason, noticing the calmer atmosphere, spent more time in the living room again. He laughed once at something on television, and the sound startled Hannah in the best way. It reminded her what peace sounded like. By the 8th day, the momentum had faded. Caleb returned home early one afternoon and dropped his apron on the counter. "I'm not staying there," he said. "The pay's too low and the manager treats me like a kid." Samantha stopped accepting delivery orders, saying the effort outweighed the reward. Evan never followed up on the warehouse job. Instead, he resumed long hours on the couch, scrolling through his phone, occasionally muttering about how unfair everything felt. The stack of job listings Hannah had printed remained untouched on the table. She observed the pattern without reacting emotionally. That night, after Mason went to sleep, she sat at her desk and typed a short letter. It was direct and factual. It outlined the theft, the recovered funds, the lack of sustained employment, and the deadline. 7 to 2 hours to make arrangements to leave. She printed it and placed it on the kitchen table before going to bed. The next evening, Caleb read the letter twice before looking up. "You're serious," he said quietly.
Hannah nodded.
Yes. Samantha's voice trembled. We don't have a place lined up.
Hannah kept her tone calm.
You have 72 hours to secure one. Evan paced near the doorway, anger simmering beneath his silence. Caleb tried nostalgia, reminding her of childhood memories and shared holidays.
She listened without interrupting.
When he finished, she said, helping doesn't mean sacrificing stability. I chose to protect my son. The words weren't dramatic. They were final. Over the next 2 days, the house filled with the sounds of packing, drawers sliding open, trash bags rustling, muted arguments behind closed doors. They borrowed a pickup truck from a friend. On the last morning, Caleb lingered near the door.
I never thought it would end like this, he said. Hannah took back the spare key from his hand. Neither did I, she replied.
Then she closed the door gently, not with anger, but with certainty. The house felt different the moment the truck pulled away. Not empty, lighter. Hannah stood in the quiet living room for a long second, listening to the absence of tension. No raised voices. No television humming in the background. No low complaints drifting from the kitchen. Mason stepped out of her bedroom and looked around as if he was seeing the space for the first time.
Are they really gone? He asked. She nodded.
Yes.
He didn't say anything else.
He just walked to the couch and sat down, stretching his legs across the cushions like he finally had room again. That small, ordinary movement meant more to Hannah than any apology she had received. She walked down the hallway and opened the door to the room that had once been Mason's. It was half empty now, a few forgotten hangers in the closet and a dent in the carpet where a dresser had stood. She leaned against the doorframe and allowed herself one steady breath.
It hadn't been dramatic. It hadn't been explosive. It had simply been necessary.
Over the next week, Hannah focused on repairs, both financial and practical. The mechanic replaced the failing component in her car, and for the first time in months, it drove without rattling on the highway. She met with her bank to finalize the disputes, signing paperwork that confirmed additional charge reversals. The total recovered settled just above $7,600. It wasn't the full $8,400, but it restored stability. She rebuilt the emergency fund gradually, adjusting her budget with careful precision.
Mortgage paid. Utilities current.
Mason's prescriptions refilled without hesitation at the pharmacy counter. Each completed task felt like tightening a loose bolt in a structure that had nearly shifted off balance.
She didn't celebrate loudly. She didn't announce victory. She simply returned to order.
Stability, she had learned, was not dramatic. It was quiet and deliberate. Mason moved back into his room the following weekend. Together, they rearranged the furniture, bringing his desk back to the window. He didn't complain about the months he had spent sleeping in her room. He never had. But when he placed his books on his own shelf again, his shoulders relaxed in a way she hadn't noticed before. That Saturday evening, Hannah suggested they go out.
Nothing extravagant. Just a movie at the local theater.
She bought 2 tickets and a large popcorn without checking her balance first. The simple freedom of that choice felt significant. On the drive home, Mason looked out the window at the passing city lights. It's nice just being us again, he said.
Hannah glanced at him and smiled.
Yeah, she agreed. It is. There was no bitterness in her voice. Only clarity. News traveled quietly through mutual acquaintances. Caleb's car was eventually repossessed when payments fell behind. Samantha and Caleb moved between relatives' spare rooms and inexpensive motels, trying to stretch temporary arrangements into something stable. Evan found part-time work at a fast food restaurant across town. It wasn't glamorous, but it was employment. Hannah heard these updates without satisfaction and without guilt. Consequences were not punishments she had designed. They were the natural result of decisions made long before she froze a single card. She didn't reach out. She didn't block anyone either. She allowed distance to exist without hostility. For the first time in months, her life was not organized around someone else's instability. One evening, her phone lit up with Caleb's name. She let it ring and listened to the voicemail afterward. His voice sounded tired. He apologized, though the words drifted between regret and justification. He said he hoped she didn't hate them. Hannah sat at the kitchen table, phone in her hand, and considered calling back. She chose not to. Not out of anger. Not out of pride. But because nothing needed to be said. Boundaries had already spoken clearly. Forgiveness, she understood, did not require renewed access. Silence could also be a form of peace. Life settled into a predictable rhythm. Hannah worked her scheduled hours, balanced her accounts, and began rebuilding the savings cushion she had once guarded so carefully.
Mason focused on school and soccer. The house remained calm.
Even ordinary inconveniences, traffic delays, long lines at the grocery store, felt manageable without the constant undercurrent of financial strain. Hannah reflected occasionally on the moment her mother had said, "Kids will be kids." She understood now how easily that phrase could excuse behavior that demanded accountability. Youth explained mistakes. It did not erase responsibility. At 19, Evan had been old enough to understand ownership. The difference was that someone had finally drawn a line. Hannah did not regret helping her brother when he first called from that parking lot months earlier.
Compassion had not been the mistake. Silence had been. Allowing boundaries to blur had cost her far more than money. It had cost her calm.
She understood now that generosity required structure to survive. Without limits, it turned into permission. Without accountability, it turned into entitlement.
She did not see herself as harsh. She saw herself as realistic.
Her son depended on her consistency, not her guilt. And consistency required decisions that sometimes felt uncomfortable. On a quiet Sunday morning, sunlight filled the kitchen while Hannah prepared coffee. Mason sat at the table finishing homework, the house steady around them. There were no raised voices, no overdue notices, no surprise notifications lighting up her phone.
Just routine. Just stability.
She looked at her son and felt the quiet certainty of someone who had chosen correctly. Love, she realized, was not proven by how much chaos a person tolerated.
It was proven by how well they protected what truly depended on them. She had not chosen money over family.
She had chosen responsibility over excuses. And sometimes the most necessary act of love was not opening the door wider. It was closing it firmly, locking it, and allowing adults to stand on their own 2 feet. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If this story resonated with you, let it be a reminder that boundaries are not betrayal. Helping family does not mean sacrificing your stability, your peace, or your child's security. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that protect what truly matters. If you've ever been told to just let it go when something felt deeply wrong, this is your confirmation that drawing a line is not selfish. It's strength. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, would you have handled it the same way?
I'll see you in the next story.